Before there was the Alta station, the Quick Stop, Loaf and Jug, and 7-Eleven in Canyon City and Florence, there was the Speedway. In the Roaring '20s, the internal combustion engine had quickly replaced the horse and buggy. Across the U.S. and in Canyon City and Florence, it was no different. You couldn't cruise Maine without a tank of gas. $2 would fill you up. Rufus Renfro would open his first gas station at Thurn, Maine in Canyon City. He named it Speedway in 1926. Times were booming and people were loving their new freedom in the automobile. Rufus would team up with his dad, Finus Renfro, and they formed the United Dividend Corporation. By 1930, the company would have 4 Speedway stations in Canyon City alone. Despite the Depression, they were just getting started. The company quickly expanded and opened a station in Florence and kept going from there. Rufus and Finus would play a big role in Canyon City. The company's national, more accurately Colorado headquarters were upstairs at 4th and Main. Rufus and his dad Finus would purchase a fleet of 10 Diamond T tractor trailers to supply its expanding operations. The Speedway's mechanic shop was just across the street from the Elks Club and half a block from the company's headquarters. Speedway focused its operations along the Highway 50 corridor because of ease of delivery. Well, that is, unless you traveled Monarch Pass in the dead of winter. This gas hauler slid right off the road one winter's day in the 30s. Luckily, it was empty on its way back to Canyon City. Fortunately, the driver survived.
Think of it. The new Dodge Beauty winner of 1936 now sells for only $640 and up.
The company was just humming along. Not even when they took the drastic step of raising a gallon of gas to 19 cents a gallon would it slow them down. By the mid-1930s, you could find a Speedway station in 46 different locations in southern Colorado, from Montrose to Grand Junction to Alamosa. Speedway wasn't the only game in town. The Bermans operated the Sinclair station on the busiest intersection in town at 9th and Main. Despite the company's success during the tough times, Rufus and Finus decided it was time to sell, and as the 1930s would come to a close, half of the stations were sold to Texaco. The other half would go to the family members or close. Speedway products would continue to sell for a few more years, but the brand started to fade. Joel Renfro's dad, Leonis, would buy the store at Main and Maple in Florence. It would be renamed Renfro Service and would operate for another decade or so. You might recognize the taco house that would occupy the building in later years. Ron Taylor of Canyon City found an interest in the old stations, and before he knew it, he was a collector.
It's like any collection hobby is like, well, I have 1 Speedway thing, so 2 would be better and 3 would be great.
Ron has found some old directional signs, oil cans, and road maps. He even has one of the station's old marquees in his garage. Rufus would retire, and he and his wife Essie and 2 young children, Dwayne and Ivana, would move to a ranch in Ordway. He would die tragically there during a robbery in 1957. His dad, Finus, would outlive him by another 6 years and pass in 1963. Dwayne Renfro shared most of these pictures. He was only 13 when his dad died. He saved a lot of the items to remind him of his dad and the days of Speedway gas. He sold his last glass gas globe, say that 5 times fast, for $10,000 4 or 5 years ago. He chuckles today thinking his dad would smile if he knew that. He probably paid less for his first station in 1926. A lot of other service stations have come and gone since, but during the late 20s and 30s, Speedway was the better gas. Dr. Moore's office occupies one of the first Speedway stores at 8th and Macon today. The old Sinclair Berman station at 9th and Main would change and be rebuilt over the years. 7-Eleven was at the corner for a few decades in the 80s and 90s. And annexed to the Methodist Church occupies the space today. The very first Speedway store at 3rd Main is vacant. There have been many different businesses there since. You can still see where the Speedway station once stood at what was then called South 9th and Cottage. It sat right on the banks of the Arkansas River. 19 cent a gallon gas has long been gone. Rufus and Finus would be turning over if they knew it was $2.39 a gallon today. And that's another edition of Throwback Thursday. Thanks to Dwayne Renfro, his fourth cousin Joel Renfro, Ron Taylor, the Royal Gorge Museum and Regional History Center, and the Florence Pioneer Museum for keeping the memories alive. I'm Chris Jenkins.